Hey, good morning on the West Coast out there in the Pacific, and good afternoon here on the East Coast. My name is Neil McDonald. We're going to get started with daily lives right now. Before we go into the main training topic for today, I just wanted to point out something I put out on LinkedIn, a post that I put out on LinkedIn. It's about it's kind of like climate and energy efficiency type posts. There's a sustainability office that the federal government has that I really encourage any of you who are selling in the federal market to actually go take a look at this post and then begin to see how can you get a piece of this, right? The federal government has, I think it's like a portfolio of 300,000 businesses, 600,000 vehicles, and a $650 million budget that they're working to improve energy efficiency, climate impact, things like that over the next several decades, which is just incredible opportunity. And so if you're in construction, get in there, right? I have a customer who comes on here often, and she's in the construction business and elevators, things like that. And I've been putting this together, trying to drive her that direction, and some others who are in our community in the construction space. But this is also important for any of us in the professional services, the IT space, artificial intelligence. How can we use AI in improving energy efficiency? There's many of you out there who do training, things like that. Well, a big part of this sustainability initiative for the federal government is on workforce development. And so go take a look at that. And that post I put out there today, you can find it on my LinkedIn profile and download the document. I think it's 100 plus pages that relate to what the government's trying to do. And it's one I'm going to keep digging in further. But inside that post, I also put 50 names of sustainability officers at many of the top agencies out there. Actually, there's probably 50 names. I put in about 30 or 40 names into the post as well, because many of them had LinkedIn profiles. I'm like, hey, let's go ahead and tag them and see if we can get them engaged in this as well. So I hope you take a look at that. Again, if you don't know me, I'm Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to the Federal Daily Sales training that I do, where I discuss process of procedures for you to achieve success in the federal market. I was a small business owner for 20 years and in the federal market space. And since 2018, I've been helping people like you understand that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. And the process goes from A to Z, right? If we follow the process, we'll achieve whatever we're looking for at the other end. We'll achieve the success, etc. One thing to keep in mind, and I'm going to keep showing this over and over again. I might just show it right now briefly, and I'll show it a couple of times here. But this graphic here that you look at is a bell curve. When I talk about you follow the process A to Z and you get to the end, remember that sometimes when you get to the end, half the people will do what you want them to do, whatever that is, and half of them will not. I call it some will, some won't, so what? And it's really important to remember that. But the process leads to the success we're trying to get done. So anyway, so I've been doing that for many years, and we're going to continue that today, talking about how do you get past gatekeepers. Somebody actually gave me this topic, one of my customers, talking about how do I not step on toes in agencies that I'm already in. And we evolved that topic into really you're just dealing with a gatekeeper, whether it's a gatekeeper for a new customer or a gatekeeper for an existing customer, and you're afraid to get past them to just walk the hallways. How do you get past that? And that's what we're going to talk about today. One last thing I want to remind you is help buyers and me remember who you are. Put your core competency, 2 or 3 words, along with your company name into the chat, and people will be able to see that, remember who you are, etc. Feel free to say hi. And many of you have started putting in where you're located. I think that's pretty cool, because I remember several trainings back, a whole bunch of you from San Antonio got together and were like, hey, I do work down in San Antonio, or I want to do work down there. So feel free to throw in your city and state if that makes sense. So we're going to dive into a lot today. If this is your first time here, I tend to move at a fire hose pace. And when I say fire hose, I'm really here to give you as much training as I can in 30 minutes with tactical steps. And so you want your notepad and pencil out so that you can write down some tips I give you in the next 20, 25 minutes here. But I'm going to cover three main ways of looking at the gatekeeper topic we're discussing today. First is I just want to introduce the gatekeeper. What are we talking about when we say gatekeeper? The second thing is I want to tell you my recommendations on turning gatekeepers into advocates. How do you get them out of the role of gatekeeper? You're fired from that job, or you're promoted from gatekeeper to advocate for Neil, right? It's kind of thing. So I want to talk about that. And then the last topic I want to talk about is how do you bypass these gatekeepers? And I'm going to give you specific tips on how to bypass them, things you could do this afternoon, right? To get moving forward on this activity. One of the things that reasons I like coming back and saying, let's just talk about gatekeepers for a minute and introduce the topic is because the biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it took place at all. The biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it took place at all. An example is the illusion that maybe we're on the same page of what a gatekeeper is or what their impact, positive or negative, is to your company. And so that's why I like digging at the basics first. And when we do that, we build a foundation of understanding as we get to the tips of how to deal with the gatekeeper. So, in a nutshell, the way I describe a gatekeeper is that they exist to stop my sales cycle. Gatekeepers, you can think about it in other worlds, but we're in federal sales right now. That's what this training is. So I have a sales cycle, that process, right? I have a sales cycle that goes from the beginning to the award. And anybody who interferes with me is a gatekeeper. And, and so fundamentally, that's all a gatekeeper is. I don't want to overly describe it at that point, but they exist because they want to be in control. Many of us, and I say this a lot in my training, and I really want to drive this home. Many of us understand this, but all humans like to be in control and feel powerful. And that's not a bad thing, right? It's not a negative thing. We want to feel like we're in control of our own life, our own safety, our family safety, our own destiny, right? We want to feel powerful, like we're contributing into society. Some people want to feel powerful by bringing people down. And that's exactly the two ways of looking at control and powerfulness is you can either do it by holding people down or you can do it by holding people up. And what we want to do with gatekeepers who are holding us down is help them feel in control and powerful by helping us up. And I'm going to show you how to do that when I talk about turning them into an advocate. But it's important to remember that we are at that stage, people are at that stage where we feel like we want to be in control and we want to feel powerful. And I believe that some of us, you might have done this, make the mistake and set these people up in a position where the only way they can feel powerful is maybe hold us down because of two reasons. One is we're coming at them too aggressive, or the other is, and this is worse to me because it's harder to back away from this. Aggressiveness, you can just tone it back, right? But the other one is we come at them as if we're friends. We're trying to make friends with them. Somebody taught us that, or taught you that, hey, success in government contracting is about relationships. Well, maybe you didn't listen to their whole thread. They didn't mean BFFs, right? They're not looking for you to go out and become best friends. And that sometimes is a mistake we make in sales is we go in and we try to create a personal rapport with them. We should not be doing that. We should be creating a professional rapport for them. Their agency has a mission. That person has a job trying to serve internal customers. We have the solution to the needs that they have. That's the relationship we want. When we have a good professional relationship, it can evolve to a personal one. But when you start it in a personal level, you're kind of controlled to a degree. So there's three types of people you might run into as gatekeepers. And I just want to give you a scenario so it puts it in your head, because I am going to ask you, which one are you dealing with, right? The first one is focus of receptivity. These are people who, let me tell you the three people. Focuses of receptivity, friendly, help you do anything. Focuses of dissatisfaction. Basically, that's the program office who has the need. Focus of power. That's the acquisition personnel. And so the acquisition people are the ones who sign contracts, right? And so when you look at a focus of receptivity, one of the challenges they talk about is, or gatekeeper, the way you can see them as a gatekeeper is they say, oh, just go through me. You just reached out to the Army and here's this person. They said, just go through me. It's like, what are you talking about? Actually, in DLA, I ran into this exact situation. For billions of spending, this one person said every conversation had to go through them. And it was one of my customers who ran into it. And I showed him how to get past that. But it was horrible because she was really controlling them, making them feel bad about going somewhere. And so you got to watch out for those people who seem friendly. They're kind of got your best interest at heart, but they really don't. If the sale is not moving forward, then you're not doing your job. And if you know, as a boss or if you're a small business owner, you should be looking in saying, move that sale forward. Okay, focus is a dissatisfaction. Here's one example of how you know you ran into a gatekeeper there. Somebody is, especially for product sales, right? Somebody says, let me have a demo of your product. And then they extend the demo. They're not making introductions to other people. They are a bottleneck or a gatekeeper to the sale, to meeting decision makers, et cetera. And you've got to watch out for that. It's one of the reasons I don't like giving demos at all. I'll be happy to sell pilots or prototypes all day long, but not demos, because demo, they get something for free. You never give away things for free. And then the last one is focuses of power. These are contracting officers, right? In the small business world. I mean, in the federal contracting world. And focuses of power will tell you sometimes, don't talk to anybody about this requirement. And so you happen to call them and contracting officer says, don't talk to anybody. And you're like, what are you talking about? The RFP hasn't dropped. It's totally okay to keep talking. And sometimes acquisition people misunderstand the regulations and they try to constrain what a vendor might say. Well, it's horrible if you run into a gatekeeper like that, because then you're like, oh, am I stepping on toes, et cetera. So let me give you some tips on, by the way, some of the reasons why it's bad for you though, is your sales cycle stops. If you're stopped at a gatekeeper, your competition is going around you, right? That's a big deal. If I was working in your competition, I would not be stopped by a gatekeeper. So if you are, I got to get you around them. Either I got to get you to turn them into an advocate or get you around them. So let's talk about how to turn them into an advocate. And by the way, while I take a quick sip of water, do me a favor. If this is making sense about the types of gatekeepers you might run into with focuses of receptivity, focuses of dissatisfaction, or focuses of power, that's really the small business pro, the program office, the acquisition. Which one are you running into, right? I mean, you came to this training because something about getting past a gatekeeper caught in your mind. Are you running into them? And if you are, which one of those three would you put them in? Okay. While you're doing that, it's a hot day, so it's 90 plus already. It's killing me here on the East Coast. Let's talk about how to turn them into advocates. Gatekeepers are not bad people, right? There's this line I teach my kids, right? Or this way of thinking that I teach my kids. Your behavior is bad. You are not bad, right? They are not bad people when they misbehave. They're just behaving poorly. And the gatekeeper is not a bad person. They're just behaving like a roadblock and a hurdle and a bottleneck gatekeeper. And we need to help them get past that. And this is why I want you to think first about turning them into an advocate. And remember, I said that people want to feel in control. They want to feel powerful. I want to feel powerful and in control. One way I do that is by helping people, right? How do you do that? When you think about it, and it's not in a bad way. We just want control of our lives. So one of the easiest ways you can work with these people who coming from that perspective of control and feeling powerful is to guide them and show them complete respect right from the beginning. And I don't mean, minimizing who you are, but you can still show them a lot of respect as you go forward, and you can listen to them, right? You hear that line about there's two ears, one mouth, listen twice as much as you talk. But in the beginning, it's just about showing them respect. The second thing is you can begin to get specific steps for them. When you meet a gatekeeper, something happened, right? Did you follow my process for how to reach out to these people, how to set up the purpose of the call and the objective, the questions you're going to ask, et cetera? Well, one of the things you want to do when you're using a call plan and going in and talking to somebody, and you can do this, by the way, again, if you run into a gatekeeper, you don't know what to do, we'll just set up another meeting. But talk to them about, what can I do within your agency that I should be doing? Is there a document I should be reading? I looked around on the internet and I was trying to find small business office material. Do you want me to look at that? Is there a recent industry day event that you did to small businesses that you're telling us guidance? Should I go look at that? You're trying to get them to say, yeah, Neil, go look at this, and watch that. Okay, and if I do that, and this is the catch here, if I do that, Will you introduce me to the CTO? Will you tell me who's doing SharePoint? Will you introduce me to the cybersecurity folks? Whatever it is that we're trying to do in federal contracting, we're always trying to get to the program office. That's what sales is getting to that program office. And so you want to hear about these little steps on how to understand their agency from their perspective. And you might have to remind them. But when they tell you, do it, come back another day and say, hey, I've done what you said. Did I do it adequately? Right? You're kind of coming down a little bit, letting them sit there and be able to say, you know what, you did. Often I tell small businesses to do stuff and they don't do it, right? The gatekeeper's saying this. But you went and did it. Great. I like that. Let me help you do the next thing. You can ask for tiny wins, right? Tiny little wins that help them say yes. In sales, we always want to get the other person saying yes as much as we can, because those little yeses add up to big yeses. So an example of a tiny win is, could you go find a strategic document? Could you tell me, for example, I'm trying to do cybersecurity within the Army. And I know the Army has an Army cloud strategy. Is there an Army cyber strategy? Would you point me in a direction? Would you help me get that? You could ask them if they wouldn't mind introducing you to another small business professional. These little wins allow you to start building that relationship with them and getting them to say yes to you. Something else that might be there is there a video, like I talked about Industry Day, is there a video I can go and watch? And the reason I'm saying this is all of this is leading to my last tip, which is write their boss an email and say how great they are. Right? If you've got somebody who's a gatekeeper and you're telling your friends, oh, they're a pain, it drives me nuts, I can't get past them. Well, write their boss and say, hey, Jane was so helpful. I just want to reach out and tell you, I wanted to learn more about the agency and she gave me some guidance on how to do that. I wanted to get some introductions and she was able to help me with that. A couple of compliments to the boss, all of a sudden turns Jane into an advocate. She can't do anything but be happy and thankful you said that, right? And this is why I say do some of these tiny wins. Get Jane to do something for you. Even though by the way, I'm not talking about gatekeepers being jerks, right? That's a whole different story. I'm just talking about a gatekeeper is stopping you. That's a different kind of a person. That's just a person thinking that they're doing the right thing. Sometimes small business pros do that, only go through me. I had a client who was working in DLA, and I told you the story a minute ago, but that one person was saying, only go through us. But we knew there was like 50 people to talk to. And what you want to do is be able to get that person to start being an advocate for you. They're not a jerk. They just think it was the right thing. So when you get them to give you little wins in the relationship, and then you write a compliment to their boss, that's a good thing. And it's not it is a tactic. But sales is about tactics on how do you get to success? How do you get to the sale and the award, right? All of it's ethical. I mean, it's not even quasi-ethical. You're writing compliments to the boss. If you don't have compliments, go get them in little bitty wins. And the way you do that is to work with these gatekeepers. One last tip in that advocate thing is always make sure you do your research. If you don't do your research and you call anybody and you're talking to them, on the buyer side, customer side, they're going to know that, and they're going to automatically kind of have their defense up, which just naturally puts them into this gate position. It's almost as if it's on you, not them, that they're a gatekeeper. You went in without really fully understanding who you were talking to, reading supporting material on the outside, and then coming in as if you really do understand it by the things you say, the questions you ask. They'll get that and they'll understand. So if you take responsibility for the research, you give yourself more control of that relationship and help keep them farther away from being a gatekeeper. So that's how to turn them into an advocate, some tips there. And then let's wrap up here with how to bypass the gatekeepers, because I got to tell you, I don't even know what a gatekeeper is. And I know I just told you what a gatekeeper is. But in my years of experience, I don't have gatekeepers because I don't have one point of entry. And I think that was an interesting thing for me to realize as I'm teaching people sales compared to, being a small business owner and being a salesperson for decades. I never had a gate. And so there was never a gatekeeper. I would run into somebody and I just bounce off them and go this way. Like I didn't even dwell on them. And this is what I want to teach you, is how to bounce off and go around them, because that's exactly what you want to do when you're running into a gatekeeper where some basic efforts does not turn them into an advocate. So the first thing I suggest is build an org chart. Even before you talk to this gatekeeper for the first time, you should have done this in an agency. If you want to go into the, sticking with the Army today, if you want to go into the Army and you're going in to talk about SharePoint, et cetera, you should begin to line up 40, 50, 100 people that are going to be part of your outreach, right? I do this workshop where it talks about, visibility, targeting, outreach. Targeting is that part I'm talking about, where I say, identify 50 or 100 people that you want to talk to. The federal buyers, there's hundreds of thousands of them. You can't find 50 or 100 that you can talk to. If you do, now you'll know that you can go around, right? You talk to this person, you don't get much traction, you go away and you go this direction. You never even realize that it's a gatekeeper. You never feel like you're stuck and you're worried about stepping on toes or walking on eggshells because you've got all these other people you're going to call. That's business development. And as you move into an opportunity, that's capture, understanding who those people are. So, the other thing is that, as you build this org chart, break it into 3 groups. The acquisition people, so this is the contracting officer, contracting specialist. There can be many in different areas. There's the small business professionals, which are the both the small business specialists, but also PCRs. If you don't know who those are, they're the procurement center representatives who work for the SBA and monitor basically the agencies and their spend to make sure what could go small does go small. But these are good advocates. And frankly, even PTACs at this point, when you're trying to get in, many PTAC counselors and other organizations like PTACs have relationships with your buyers already who might be able to bring you in. So build that org chart as part of your targeting. And then when you do outreach, you won't have to worry about a single point of failure or a gatekeeper. Some other ideas of how you can move forward on this is that you want to be visible, right? I talked about VTO, visibility, targeting, and outreach. You want to be visible out there. And so one way to be visible is by creating content, right? When you're going through this gatekeeper, you only have one point of entry into that agency. But if you do the org chart, you've got other ways you can call in, but also they can look out and find you. And so if you're doing SharePoint or cyber or AI or construction, actually, I just saw a post, Raf, I don't know if it was today or a couple days ago, about an old-fashioned elevator from ancient Greece. And I thought it was interesting, but it wouldn't have attracted a lot of people's attention except for those people who were in the elevator space, or facility management. And it was the type of thing that maybe somebody could download and put up. But she could also be putting out content that is comparison of the top 3 elevator manufacturers or something. Stuff like that, when you put that content out there, it gets the people you're trying to reach to find you. It also helps you when you talk to that gatekeeper to be able to say, hey, I created this this market research white paper on the top elevator models and compare and contrast them. Can you help me get it to the facility manager or whoever the right person is? Well, now you're using content as a way to go forward, not just your conversation. So LinkedIn engagement is another way to really bypass anybody who's a gatekeeper. Because if you have a gatekeeper, first off, most gatekeepers probably aren't even on LinkedIn. But if you have a gatekeeper here, but you've got the org chart that you built, you just go into LinkedIn. I talked about the post I did earlier today where I put 40 people or so. I tagged them on there. Well, those people are sustainable, federal sustainability officers, I think, or chief sustainability officers for the many different agencies. If I was in that space, I could just talk to those people and go through, right? I don't have to talk to this gatekeeper. I can go up high and talk to, let's use, like a CEO or an owner or somebody. I could come down and talk to some of the worker bees. I could slide into do peer level to that gatekeeper. And so when you create an org chart, you know who you want to talk to. When you go into LinkedIn and you start engaging, like I've talked about in the past and other training, then you will have the ability to develop relationships independent of that gatekeeper. That's why I say I don't really see a gatekeeper. I just see people who are advocates or not. The last thing I just want to mention that is a great way to sit there and get past a gatekeeper, to bypass that gatekeeper completely, is to just get referrals. You have teammates that you're working with. You should have strategic partners in that agency that you want to go into. Well, they should be able to make introductions for you. You can get referrals, like I said earlier, from PTACs and other organizations like those that are tied in with the agencies. And then you can also get referrals from other agency people. One of my favorite reasons for going into the DoD and telling people stick into a single agency, be really focused, is because when you meet one, I did this whole diagram, when you meet one person in the Navy, chances of them knowing somebody else is pretty good. The chances of them being comfortable making an introduction, even if they didn't know them, is great. Hey, I'm talking with Neil. Would you mind talking with him and giving him some time? Navy to Navy kind of thing. When we go Navy to Army, it's like, well, okay, but we're still kind of military, but we're there. But the minute you start going out of departments to different departments, the value of one person to be able to introduce you somewhere is minimal. I worked in the VA, and I was supporting many of the VA hospitals, and I would be able to talk to a pharmacy chief and have them introduce me to like 9 others or something. Oh yeah, we're going to a conference. Let me just introduce you. Neil's in his company. They're doing great work for us over here. You guys should listen to them. That kind of stuff happens, and so you can use referrals or introductions to bypass that gatekeeper. Let me go ahead and pause for a second because I know my time here is almost wrapped up. And I just want to check if there's any, Gus, I don't know if you text me, if there's any, I didn't say this, but if anybody's running into any particular gatekeepers that maybe I didn't touch on, or you're like, oh, Neil, but that's good, but this, because gatekeepers should not exist in your sales world. It's an old-fashioned term that I think was applicable back when you had to go through some person on a phone to reach the person you want to sell to, or when you had to go through a receptionist to get to the person. You were literally locked at a gate, right? But now you got the internet. You have the ability to reach out to thousands that are out there. I'm curious on whether you're running into gatekeepers. So if you're running into a gatekeeper that I haven't talked about, you want me to expand on, put it in the comment. Otherwise, what we talked about today was how to get past gatekeepers. And there's 2 pieces of advice I want you to remember. One is you can turn them into an advocate, which is my first recommendation. If you feel like they're good people, turn them into an advocate. And one of the best ways is to give them a compliment, right? Be nice, respectful. The second thing is bypass gatekeepers by creating an org chart and finding those people on LinkedIn. That's the easiest tip for you to remember. Find those people on LinkedIn and come in. I interact with people constantly from the lowest rung to the very highest rung, including Assistant Secretary of the Navy or something, right? If those people are engaged on there, there's a right time to talk to those people who are in higher roles, but that doesn't matter. I'm just saying they're there, and you can reach them if you needed to. So it's funny, I'm going to wrap up with this one thing here, but Jeff, one of my favorite things about sales is that there's no tough time of year for me to sell. Like it's summertime. It's perfect. I can sell. My competition's on vacation. It's, winter time, Christmas time and all that. My competition's taking 4 weeks off of Thanksgiving and Christmas or whatever. Sales people sell. And, but I get your point. I definitely get your point. Okay, so we're good to go. I hope you found the training valuable. I'm doing more of this training. If you're not tracking that, I'm doing 5 every week. Definitely look at my profile. You find it. You can click on the attend there. Remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It is just a process. Part of the process is coming to the next event, and I'll see you there.